Who is Sekou?
60-70% of your season training, like grueling training for this one moment that lasts under a minute.
Do you think greatness is something you're born with or something you can build? What does real freedom feel like to you? Welcome back to another episode of Real Sense Now, where we dive deep into real stories shaping real estate, immigration, and the economy today. I'm your host, 𝐻𝐇𝐈𝐒, and today we have an absolutely phenomenal guest. He's an immigrant success story, a 10-time All-American athlete, and a fierce advocate for justice, attorney Sekou Clarke. From the track to the courtroom, Sekou's journey is nothing short of inspiring. He's the founder of the Sekou Clarke Law Group. His firm has become a powerful force in immigration law and personal injury, helping people turn their pain into purpose. Today, we're unpacking critical issues from U.S. immigration policies and their impact on real estate to deportations, investor visas, and so much more. Whether you're an investor, immigrant, or just curious about how global events shape our local markets, this conversation is going to open up your eyes. So let's dive in. Sekou, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dawood.
How are you really doing today?
Hey, I always say, well, this will tell my age, but do you remember the cartoon Pinky and the Brain?
Of course.
So it's like just another day trying to take over the world.
That's my favorite quote too.
That's it.
What are we going to do today, Pinky? The same thing we do every day.
Try to take over the world. It's stressful. It's hard. It's difficult. There's wins. There's losses. There's peaks. There's valleys. But the mindset every day, let's try to take over.
And that's what we're going to be talking about. I mean, I'm definitely going to be sharing the wealth of Sekou's wisdom when it comes to legal matters, maybe his insights on real estate, or even what's going on with the current affairs that we keep hearing about in the news. But I really want to take a more humanistic approach so that we can all get to know who the star really is. Sekou, take us back to the beginning. What was your biggest dream growing up in Jamaica?
My biggest dream growing up in Jamaica was to actually win an Olympic gold medal, then have an office with floor-to-ceiling windows and wearing a suit to my job every day.
Did you know what the job was?
It was either being a lawyer or just a business owner, but something that involved wearing a suit.
Big windows.
And big windows. I saw the building in my mind from when I was like 16.
And God bless you because you're doing both right now.
So, I mean, yeah, I didn't win the Olympic gold medal. You know, I didn't get to run in the Olympics, but that entire journey and the lessons and everything that gained from chasing that goal, from chasing that dream, actually led me to what we have pushing forward right now.
You know, I think when I speak to a lot of my friends that are incredibly successful entrepreneurs or just at the pinnacle or the apex of their industry, I think the one thing that comes back to me every single time is mindset. How did your experience as a world-class athlete shape your mindset for the legal battlefields that you have to fight in every single day?
No, I mean, the mindset that I have was definitely cultivated from Jamaica. Everything Jamaica is where my mindset comes from. First, it came from my dad, right? My dad is world-renowned coach, one of the best coaches ever to come out of Jamaica. He was the Jamaican Olympic coach, and he used to always say, you know, ride it till the wheel falls off, go big or go home. You know, just do it properly, just do it right. And everything he told me he would do in life, he did, right? From when we were poor to when he told me he was going to become successful. And I learned that it's just a mindset, seeing him where everything he said he was going to do, he would set it as a goal and I'd see him work towards it. So that's where that mindset was really rooted. And then also growing up in Jamaica, right? You grew up in Jamaica where it's, well, first of all, I went to an all-boys high school, right? Jamaica College. And in that high school, it's you either survive or
you perish.
Or you perish, right? Both academically sports and just surviving. So I mean, the academics was a fierce competition there.
Of course, it's based on an English educational system that we both went through.
Yeah.
Give you a textbook and you basically have to show up for a final exam and better know everything in that textbook. Otherwise, you're not making it.
Yeah. So I was always that guy that was at the bottom of the class, but the top class. You know, so I was in the top 15% in the school, but I was always at the bottom of that 15%, always fighting with the guys who are like
the other ones.
Yeah. So that mindset academically, I find with that, then Jamaica has like the richest track history for any nation per square mile in terms of our size. So just always fighting in that arena, and then just the school where you have a mix of poverty, wealth, middle class, and everybody trying to find an identity. Amongst you see in the working class, I mean, the average working class person in Jamaica has 4 or 5 jobs. You know, so it's that mindset for me.
But Jamaican people are industrious, hardworking people.
Exactly. So for me, you blend all of those things together from my home, from sports, and just from the academic arena. It was always a fight, and it's always a push, and a fight. Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, what you're describing to me is literally the layup, if you may, if I can use a basketball metaphor, for the questions that I'm about to ask you next. I'm curious to know, what lessons did you learn from track and field that still guide you in your legal practice today?
The lessons that I learned is always be willing to adapt, you know, and that's with, especially like running the 400, you always try to run the race the same way, but based on weather, based on competition, you have to adapt mid-race and deal with the consequences, right? Or deal with the wins. I learned that it definitely helped me with knowing how to lose, right? Because the losses that you take, you can't sit on the losses, you can't absorb the losses. You take that L and then you move on to the next one. So it's just really having a short memory where wins and losses are concerned. You know, they say track, you're only as good as your last race. So if your last race sucked, that's a lot of times that's what you look at, and then you have to fight to regain that again. So transitioning that mindset, and track is one of the only sports, right, where you train more than you compete. So you'll spend 60-70% of your season training, like grueling training for this one moment that lasts under a minute.
It's funny because I read a quote, and they were talking about Usain Bolt's success. Mm-hmm. And he literally ran 6 minutes his whole career or something in terms of actual competition time.
Exactly. That's
when you
great.
think about it, right?
Yeah.
And all the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
You know, losing your toenails, throwing up after a race, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you watch these documentaries and you begin to understand essentially the next question I'm going to ask you, which is, how do you stay mentally sharp under such immense pressure?
To stay mentally sharp is something that I'm continuously working on. And I think it's really about not hanging on to the losses, not hanging on to the stress, and just being in the know, but always believing that the next moment will be better. The next moment you will overcome it. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost, is they either have this challenge, they either have this loss, they have this disappointment, or they see this risk and they just hang on to it. And they hang on to it and they get overwhelmed by it. And it either causes them to either freeze up or go through like paralysis, or they go with something less painful, right? But the mindset from being Jamaican, being track is like, all right, that happened, it hurt, it sucked, but there's tomorrow, and tomorrow will be better. And
certain
that is the mindset.
Dexterity in your culture that I find is unlike many other cultures. Mm-hmm. I mean, I identify with it from different areas in which, I grew up in. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say we grew up in poverty, but after war, we definitely experienced some level of it. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely extremely challenging. But there's a stick-to-ity, if you would like to call it that, to just gets you plugged in and keep you going. I knew you before you were a lawyer.
Yes.
We used to know each other when we used to go to the same gym together.
Yes.
Been thinking about the kind of questions that I wanted to share with you and where I wanted this conversation to go. We've had other conversations when we did it on the radio, which were really just legal based and immigration based. But what's your personal definition of justice?
My personal definition of justice, right, is really just a journey, right? For me, justice for my clients, justice for an individual or a company is a journey to undo, a journey to be heard, and a journey to be resolved. Because a lot of times you can get justice, but it's not exactly what you thought justice would look like, but it is still a resolve. And there's still a journey to create that voice for somebody to be heard, or as simple as a debt to be repaid.
Love it. We're both immigrants.
Yes.
How did your own immigrant experience inspire you to champion immigration rights? We're just getting started. Amazing stories, expert guests, and real conversations you won't find anywhere else. Subscribe now and stay tuned. We've got so much more to share with you.
It definitely inspired me 100%, right? And I always tell people that I never wanted to be an immigration attorney because I thought it was too cliche because as an immigrant, but I'm the full definition of an immigrant. Came from Jamaica as a F1 student on a student visa with an athletic scholarship, then went through the road of trying to change my status through being an athlete, got denied like 3 times, even ended up out of status and undocumented, and then having that fixed to then being able to pursue my life and my dreams here, and then being able to now do the same thing for other people.
I love it. What do you feel about the changing political landscape that's shaping all of these deportation cases that we keep hearing about all over the news, and just the different direction it seems like we're moving in the past few weeks or so?
Factually, when I examine the changes, right, they're really minute compared to other administrations, right? And what has happened is the difference between this administration is that immigration is significantly more polarized, right? In the first 3 months of the year, in terms of deportations, when it's compared to the Biden administration, it's still the same or even less.
Really?
Right? But immigration is more polarized based on this administration, what they campaign down, which is, hey, we're going to fix immigration. We're going to target immigrants. And a lot of the laws that they're using, it's laws that were already there, but they're just enforcing. Not to say that, no, you have more laws that are being raised from the dust, but you also have more executive orders that are polarized, but they're only going after a fraction of people. So, like, say for instance, right now you now have DHS going after all of the students who either they have green cards or they're on a student visa, but they participated in some type of political rally.
What's your thoughts on that? What happened to freedom of speech?
So the caveat to freedom of speech, right, which is in the Constitution, which politicians or historians can use it to their advantage, is weighing national security to freedom of speech. Every enumerated right from the Constitution, right, you have that right. But if it poses a risk to national security, then that's when it goes to the federal government. And they can make that assessment that national security is paramount to this enumerated right from the Constitution. So that is what's happening. So you have people who they were in these political campaigns and they voiced their opinion, or they rallied with a group that are somehow aligned with quote unquote terrorists. Obviously, terrorists are against national security, right? So they do have that right to make that determination that they're going to protect national security because of that alignment. But where does the risk fall? Who is making this proper determination that this person right, in their life because they held up a sign in a rally supporting this group means that they are an actual
conspirator or something of the
a
other?
risk. Is it a risk or a chance that the U.S. government should take? Because you can look at it from both sides, right? You should leave these people alone. They're only exercising their freedom of speech, right? Say the government leaves that person alone. 2 years later, you'll see something where there was a bomb or a mass shooting that went off as a political
Justification?
yeah, either as a justification, and it kills a whole bunch of people. Then they go back and they say, hey, the FBI actually had this person and they were targeting this person. Why didn't they act on it? So there's one side for that, and then there's the other side for freedom of speech, and where does that end and where does it begin?
Love it. What would your advice be as immigration policies seem to be tightening in some aspects in terms of how families can protect themselves legally? And what advice would you give for those that are fearful of deportation right now?
Okay, so if you are fearful of deportation, that means you have something in your background, right? Either you've had a past conviction, you do not have the proper legal status.
Correct.
You either had a deportation order, right? Or again, you entered illegally and you don't have status, right? Those are the four things that someone would be afraid of deportation. If you are that person, you need to consult with an immigration attorney.
Right away.
Immediately.
Right away. Not now, right now.
Right now, to get some type of strategy, right? Granted, I mean, I've done consultations with people where due to the unique facts in their case, there isn't really a strategy that is palatable for them, right? So you have those cases. But for a lot of people, there are options, there are strategies, some are short-term, some are long-term, that can actually resolve a lot of the issues that they don't have, but they're getting the wrong advice from people.
Let's move over to another area of immigration, which is one that's actually welcome here in the United States, which is the transference of brain power from a number of different countries, whether it's coming on an H-1 visa, L-1 visa, L2, whatever the case may be. You know these visas better than I do.
Yeah.
How do you feel that how do you see U.S. administration impacting employment visas now?
So there was one concession recently made, right? Because as you know, this current administration, they're like, look, you see it, ICE is everywhere. ICE is going in the churches, they're taking kids out of school, they're going to people's homes, shopping, right? And they're saying, the administration is saying, we're getting all these people out. However, he recently made a caveat that, like, look, we want these people to leave and come back in legally. But what we will do for the farmers, right? What we will do for the people who are in construction and who are in
landscaping and all these other services.
Yeah, that are actually needed right now, we're going to give you an opportunity to try to resolve your immigration issue before you leave, because he has realized that there are certain industries that are almost 60 to 70% dependent on immigrants. And without the immigrants, the average American will feel it in the supermarket.
Are investor visas still a viable path in this day and age?
1,000%.
What's the trend there?
Actually, I've been getting more approvals, faster approvals with investor visas and employment visas than other visas right now. I mean, I got an L1 visa 3 weeks ago approved in 5 days. So I've seen more on the investor side, more on the business side, that this is the type of immigration that this administration prefers.
How do you think Florida in particular has been specifically affected by immigration policies?
It's a heavily populated immigrant state, right?
Hence the reason why I ask versus another state.
Exactly, yeah. Right? But it's also, the industries are also proportionate to other states, heavily immigrant based, right? Such as farming, right? Orange groves and all that. With that said, Florida has significantly been affected because Governor DeSantis has significantly cracked down a lot of the state's policies as it regards to illegal immigration. He has now empowered the law enforcement departments, such as the sheriff, the local police departments, to now assist ICE. He's also made it illegal where a U.S. citizen can actually get a felony for actually bringing an undocumented immigrant into the state. So he has been, I don't want to use the word radical. I don't think that would be the most, but he has been, in terms of most governors, the most vocal and, for lack of better terms, the most active when it comes down to immigration. Is it counterproductive because of the state and the nature of the state where you have Disney in the state, right? Disney hires the most immigrants for any industry. You have Mar-a-Lago that hires a lot of immigrants, right? Is it counterproductive? The facts could definitely lead towards that. Yeah.
Let's talk about the media. How does the media's narrative about immigration actually differ from the reality that you see on a daily basis?
So the media will show more of what people watch, right? And when you have a campaign that the top 3 things that they campaign on is illegal immigration, the media is going to show it more, right? The media is going to polarize it because, immigration is an issue where you're not dealing with widgets or cars or stuff like that. You're dealing with people. So it is more polarizing than the actual numbers that I see, right? Yes, you have ICE picking up more people, but ICE, through other administrations, they have been doing the same thing, right? But in terms of the actual numbers, the numbers aren't dramatically different from other administrations, but you see these on videos more, So I look at it from 2 sides. Yes, the courts have been more jammed up because you have more ICE cases, right? But at the same time, the numbers from previous administrations aren't significantly different. But now you see the story of, this guy got deported to his home country. He was a good guy. He had his work permit. He had no criminal history, and he got deported. Guess what? He didn't have a relief to stay here when he entered the country. So that's, you have to have the legal paperwork. You have to go through the right channels. And what I say to a lot of immigrants is, who are getting deported right now, even if you didn't have a criminal record, it's like you had time to figure something out. Yeah.
So let's turn this to real estate.
Yes.
How do you feel that the current immigration policies, whether it's investor visas, whether it's people coming here, actually directly impacting the Florida real estate market? Enjoying the vibe? We drop new content that's fun, real, and packed with value every single week. Hit that subscribe button. Let's grow this community together.
That's actually a good question, right? In terms of impacting the Florida real estate market, the Florida real estate market is going to boom regardless, right? Because you have the people who they're all about legal immigration, but they still see an opportunity to invest in South Florida. They still see an opportunity to invest in Tampa. So they're going to come here and they're going to buy the real estate. They're going to use it to drive investor visas. So why not? So in terms of immigration affecting it, I as of right now, I don't see like a big impact tangibly.
So with foreign investment, which is clearly impacting the super ultra luxury segment of specifically the Miami real estate market, we can see that golden visas are definitely the way in which extremely wealthy people can now easily come to the United States, take advantage of a program like that, and really enjoy the lifestyle, the luxuries of what these types of markets offer. How does the luxury and pre-construction market, do you think, will be influenced by that? Do you think we'll still keep seeing an uptick in the trend moving forward for these segments? Or do you think we're going to see the pre-construction market stall as more and more people find it harder to come here?
So in terms of the pre-construction market, I think the way how immigration will affect it is if you have construction companies that rely heavily on workers that are undocumented or workers who are impending. If they have a fear and don't want to go to work, then you're going to have issues with actual construction. So that's how I see.
So you're looking at it more from the labor
From
force.
the labor.
That's very interesting.
And producing the actual product. In terms of people buying, I definitely think that U.S. has the best open market in the world. It's the best place to invest into real estate because it's between the U.S. and China. It makes up 54% in terms of consumers in the world. So any savvy investor that is wealthy or has money to invest, they're always going to look at where are people consuming, where are people moving to, and that has not slowed down in the U.S.
72% of Americans believe that Trump's trade policies harms the U.S. economy, fueling a fear of a market downturn. 70% feel that a housing market crash is imminent in some way, shape, or form. 32% are anxious about affording payments if the economy weakens. Although some experts are saying that the demand remains strong, higher interest rates, inflations, stagflation are all concerns that could help delay the market from recovering. There's a consumer sentiment that shows 22% are expecting that their financial situation to worsen this year, which I'm also noticing that the real estate market is kind of slightly stagnant. There's not a lot of stuff moving. There's homes staying on the market.
Yeah.
How do you see this ripple effect from tariffs, global trade policies affect property values, real estate in general?
Well, in terms of property value, right, I don't think it will affect property values because the people who want to sell, they may hold, right? But then you're going to have the people who might be in a bind due to inflation and probably due to people moving. They may want to sell, but I don't see, based on the trade war that's going on, that it will affect property values in terms of seeing a decline. If anything, I do believe there will be an incline because it's all about supply and demand. And you still have people wanting to move to Florida because of more jobs, because of more opportunities, and because of more real estate. But on the other hand, you also people holding on to their coins right now, just waiting to see, right?
And that's funny because that would have been my rebuttal to your statement, because I'm noticing that a lot of foreign investors are basically pumping the brakes to kind of figure out what's going on next.
Yeah.
Whereas I can also see how it can lead for an interesting time where people would want to take the leap, springboard into taking the opportunity to finally be able to immigrate here and really start to see, I say on both sides of the argument, an increase in some aspects of the real estate market and a decrease in terms of the number of people that are willing to pull the trigger to come here to make those kind of investments. And Florida in particular is heavily influenced by investors coming to purchase properties here, whether they're from Canada, from Brazil, from Colombia, or other parts of the world. Do you feel that we're going to be seeing a bit of an increase or a decrease based on this desire or this need to come here? Or do you feel like people are just going to sit it out?
As any lawyer would say, it depends.
Good answer.
Right. It depends on so many factors because Universal is expanding, right? And people pay thousands of dollars to vacation to come to Universal. Disney is still a huge attraction and people are still coming. There has not been a significant dip, right, in response to what's going on globally for visitors, right? So I think in Florida, once you have these things that bring people to Florida, such as Disney, Universal, Miami, the beaches, growing companies, there is even a buzz that SpaceX might be coming here as well, right? So I think when you have a market like Florida and you have a governor like DeSantis who is always pushing for more businesses to come here, I don't really see a slowdown for Florida or for, any major downturn in real estate.
What types of visas do you think are most appealing for foreign investors that are interested to come to the US? Because people call me about that all the time.
Yeah.
We work closely together when
Absolutely.
I have an investor come in and they're saying, hey, I need an immigration attorney. There's one or two of my dear friends that I always give them one or two options to talk to. And I'm always sending people over to you. And I know it varies based on the countries, but what's easier to get?
So I always tell people when they say, which visa is easier, it's all based on your eligibility, right? So the premier visas for investors, it's either the E2 or the EB5, right? Obviously the EB5, it's a set amount that you have to invest, which is either 800,000 or $1,050,000, right? In a new or existing business that has to create 10 jobs. So if you have $1,050,000 to invest, you are eligible for that visa. If you don't have $1,800,000 to $1,050,000, then the E2 visa, which it doesn't lead to a green card like the EB5, but it allows you to invest into a business. It doesn't have to create 10 jobs, but you have to be 50% owner at a minimum. And it has to create at least 3 to 5 jobs over the next 5 years. So that is a little bit more attractive because it's a lower entrance rate and it allows a person to enter the US, work in that business, bring their spouse and their kids under 21.
What about visas for people with exceptional abilities?
Yeah, so those would be like the O1 visas,
O1, sorry, yeah.
Right? So you have the O1 if you have extraordinary ability. Typically, the people we get approved on those are either like engineers, even social media influencers.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, but you have to have the body of work to really show that you are influencing. That you have done work that has gotten certain notoriety and it's actually quantifiable, right? So you have social media influencers, you have athletes, and you have entertainers. And then the EB1, which is an actual green card, it's also for extraordinary ability and you have to be internationally recognized as well.
It's interesting. Are H-1B visas still hard because of the lottery system that you have to get on?
Yeah. It's hard because
And what is it? So for the people that don't know what type of visa that is.
Yeah, so the H-1B visa is typically once you have a company, right, that wants your services based on your academic background, typically you have to have like a master's or advanced degree or progressive work experience in a certain area, right? The company has to petition for you. You have to have that job offer based on your educational and experience background. However, there is a certain amount of visa that is allocated per year for the H-1B program. So it's really just if you got lucky and you made the cut for the amount of visas.
Let's turn the conversation around a little bit. You're heavily involved in the community.
Mm-hmm.
You're always up to some really cool events and going to some really great charities and so on and so forth. How important is community outreach to you personally? If you love powerful stories, expert advice, and conversations that actually make sense, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join us every week for more inspiring episodes just like this one.
No, I think it's extremely important. I do believe that the more you grow, it's the more you have to be of service. I'm definitely heavy on my faith, which leans on being of service. It's not just about consuming and just taking. And sometimes you can get distracted, but it definitely has to be one of my pillars is to be of service, whether it's given tangibly or through mentorship or making my services available is definitely something that is important to me within my communities.
What initiatives are you most proud of?
We have something called an immigrant incubator, right? Which is where we have young entrepreneurs who they have a business idea or they have a small business and we're able to provide resources for them to bring their business from startup to actually out there in the world. So that I'm very proud of putting that together.
I love that. You have to get me involved in that because I love entrepreneurship and I love mentoring kids as well too. And if I can participate in any way, it'll be my honor to do that.
Absolutely. And I love doing back to school because back to school drives where you're giving kids like school supplies and I love doing that because I remember back to school for me, just having that feeling that you have everything ready for this new year. It's a new chapter. You're excited. So to be able to be a part of that experience for families who actually need it is very fulfilling as well.
What's the most valuable lesson you would teach while mentoring a young athlete or even a future legal professional?
Don't be afraid to take risks. It's so cliche, but I see so many, even successful people, they get caught up so heavily on the planning or the dreaming phase, and they fail to execute because of just the fear of risk. My motto is build a plane in the sky. So you got to figure it out. Just get off the ground and just go for it. Once you can define your goal and feel it, whether it's on the field or on the track, once you see that goal, then you outline the steps to achieve it and just go for it. Just go for it. A lot of people get way too caught up on what if this happens?
Minutiae, yeah.
What if this happens? But I always say, but what if it works out? What if you fly?
When everything's stripped away, the titles,
Mm-hmm.
the success, the applause, the court cases you won, who is Sekou?
Sekou is a lover of experiences, a lover of freedom, right? Freedom means the ability to take my kids to school in the morning, the ability to live life on my terms, whether it's related to just being able to work out, spend time with the family. I'm a lover of experiences, and I'm a lover of seeing the best in other people. It can be a blessing and it can be a flaw sometimes, because I always see people for the better version of themselves versus accepting them for where they are. So that is who I am.
If you could have had a 5-minute conversation with your younger self, what would you say?
I would tell my younger self that you are enough. Definitely that you are enough. I would also tell my younger self, keep on going. That's it. I wouldn't want him to change much. I would just tell him, keep on going. You are enough, and just keep your eyes open.
What belief about success you held tightly for years, but today you realize it isn't true?
That success is a destination, right? I used to always think, if you achieve this thing, if you purchase this thing, if you move into this house, if you're able to accumulate XYZ, then it fundamentally equals happiness, or it equals success, right? So I used to think that achieving certain things is automatically success or happiness. But along the way, I learned that success is the actual journey, it's the actual chase, and the person who you have to become through that journey and through that chase for the different goals.
Legacy is a big word, and it gets thrown around today more than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was to ask you what it really means to you in a sentence, what would you say?
Legacy for me would mean impact. If I was to put it in one word, it would be impactful or inspirational.
100 years from now, how do you want the world to remember you?
I would hope that my future generations, they could see that something was built for them to carry on, not just in tangible things, but just on mindset, on work ethic, on significance. Yeah.
Are you finally at peace with where you're at in your life?
No.
Why?
And I think it's one of the realities that I've had to come to, which kind of piggybacks off what I just said about happiness. It's not really the destination, and I've had to learn that innately I'm a hunter, right? So it's not really in peace, and happiness for me doesn't come from the achievements or the different levels. It just really comes into the chase and the hunt. And I think for now, where I'm at, there's always going to be a chase, and there's always going to be a hunt, and that's where I find the peace is the continuous hunt and chase. Will that ever stop? Will I be blessed to be 65 years old and still hunting something? I'm probably sure, because that's what gives me life as of right now.
You've mentioned the word freedom more times than you mentioned any other word in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What does real freedom feel like to you?
So freedom is my why, right? For everything, it is my why. And for me, freedom is living life on your terms, meaning you are able to, if you don't feel like working one day, 1 week, 1 month, you can. You have the ability to unplug. You have the ability to change destinations. That is freedom for me. It's having the time that is linked to the resources to create the time.
Who's the person in your life that keeps you on your feet, grounded, no matter how high you fly?
I don't think there's any one person.
It's the whole tribe, huh?
Yeah, it's the whole tribe. There isn't a one person that I can say like that person is responsible for keeping me grounded.
Being an athlete, choosing the career path that you did, the word greatness comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think greatness is something you're born with or something you can build?
I definitely think it's something that you can build, right? But it's built in two different ways, because in the first half of your life, you're given cards, right? And you're taught how to deal those cards. And then the second part of your life, you have your own understanding of what your cards are and how you define them and how you seek out to build it, right? So the second half of your life, you have control as to how you build your life. And that's through the information that you gain, through the mindset, and through the people that you surround yourself with.
Talking about mindset, if you go back to day one of the start of your career, we've had many conversations about that because we have mutual friends that you've worked with as well too. What advice would you have given yourself? Because there's a lot of people that are going through the same process and feel lost and feel stuck.
Yeah. The more that I think about it, it would have been in the first year of my career would be to actually have better mentors within the space.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Because what I realized with young professionals, right? A lot of your habits outside of your mindset, right? But a lot of your operational habits, right? You will learn from your immediate workplace. And that is what I would have done different, is to have my first 6 months be at a more structured workplace to learn and from the beginning better operational habits.
I'm really fascinated by sports psychology, and I've seen you cross it over to how successful you've been. Obviously, it seems like it's an overnight success, but we all know it's been years and years and years and years in the making. I say overnight because I've known you for a long time, and then driving down the street, I saw a billboard of you almost every corner that I turned, which I'm really proud of seeing that from you. But, let's go back to sports psychology for a second. Were there any mental rituals that you had before a big race, before a big case? How do you get into flow?
It would all come down to like habits again. I remember the night before the race, it's really about going through your race plan, going through your cues. Then the day of the race, it would be just really prepping your mind on execution, which is all about execution. Because once you get to race day, you can't change anything. You've already trained, you already know what shape you're doing it. And it's really about execution.
If your life was a movie today, what would the title be?
Boy Meets World.
Short, succinct, but extremely cute. I like it.
Yeah.
Is there something that you're deeply curious about today?
I'm still always curious about mindset. Just like the theme of this conversation is, how do some people have it and some people don't? And then how can You have the people who don't have the mindset, but then the ones who can change it and the ones that can't. I'm very curious by that, because in the world you have the 80% and the 20%. The 20% dominates the 80%, right? And it's because of mindset. I mean, yeah, you can look at some people were given a head start. Some people were given resources to work with that other people weren't. But you have more people that get into that 20% who didn't have resources. But it's all about mindset. What is the difference between two people who grew up in a third world country on the same street, went to the same school, and one becomes super successful and one doesn't? It has to be mindset and why. What trauma did the other person go through that prevents them from developing that mindset? Or what trauma did that person go through to give them the winning mindset to say, I don't want to get back there? So mindset is always important to me. And even now when I do like interviews for my team, I no longer interview from resumes. I'm asking them questions about their day. I'm asking questions about their habits, where they go, because I want to learn about this person's mindset, because it's going to determine what type of employee they're going to be, what type of team member they're going to be, and if they're going to align with the culture that I'm trying to create.
Who believed in you at a time when you didn't even believe in yourself?
Yeah, my parents, especially my dad, he's always.
I've seen pictures of your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like tough as nails, man.
Yeah.
You can almost see his like mental dexterity in a picture. I can't explain it. I can just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
In a minute, you got emotional?
Yeah.
I know. This is just the beginning. We've got more incredible guests, more insights, and more game-changing conversations coming your way. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss out on a new episode.
Yeah.
I told you I was going to go there. I can stop, but this is the best part.
No, it's fine. I just need another coffee.
Buddy, I was writing these and I was reading them to myself. I couldn't.
It's just more about my dad, because he has Parkinson's now.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And I'm like in the middle of that right now.
It's okay, man. It's okay. But this is the time when you like everything you have learned, you just breathe life into that. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that there is a doctor who is seeming to champion certain areas of Parkinson's. You can get the name of it from Tony Robbins' book, Life Force.
Mm-hmm.
And you should listen to, or maybe just Google Tony Robbins and Parkinson's. And
really?
I'm dead serious.
Man, I listened to Tony Robbins
Well, his book, Life Force, I told a girl that I went to school with in India. She reached out to the doctor, and the doctor literally said, your dad's still in an early phase. We still need him to progress more before this therapy can really work for him.
Really?
And you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
I hate to say stuff like this to you, but there's a lot of other natural remedies.
No, and that's what we've been looking into.
Even weed, dude, will stop the tremors.
Yeah.
Really calm the body down.
Yeah.
I don't know if your dad would be open to it or not, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Is there a part of your life, if you were really honest,
that
you're still trying to heal?
I always go back to my childhood, and I'm so thankful for my parents, right? Because my parents better education, right? Because both of them started out as educators. So they broke their back to make sure that I went to private school. So when you go to private school, I'm around people who are definitely significantly more affluent. They have what I don't have. So I always grew up seeing what I don't have. So it's like a mindset. No, it's always wanting to level up. It's like second nature to always want to be better, because my parents always put me in positions for me to strive for higher. So it's just so it's almost it's a double-edged sword, because it goes back. I'm always chasing, and that part won't stop. So maybe that's something that where there are moments where I can slow down, I don't.
Did you ever think that metaphorically, that may also be the reason why you chose track? The chase?
Probably.
Running?
Well, I mean, that's what started it, because I grew up in a track family. So like my family is a track family. My mom used to run, my dad used to run, my mom's brother competed for Jamaica. So I grew up around it. And my dad is an Olympic track coach. So, and they never forced me into track. I just ended up being good at it, So it came naturally.
Can I tell you that I've interviewed a lot of people over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably one of my favorite interviews.
Yeah? It's good to hear.
What's the hardest conversation you've ever had to have, and what did you learn from it?
I mean, there are like so many conversations with clients, like telling a client that, look, there is nothing that can be done. That is one of the hardest conversations that you have to have a client, and telling them that there isn't anything that can be done based on the circumstances and the facts of their unique situation, and they're either going to have to do time or they're going to get deported. Those are usually like the
toughest conversations.
The toughest type of conversations.
What's something you're still deeply curious about?
Again, like in this space, it's just still mindset. That's my number one, curiosity in figuring that out, but also continuously how to elevate mind.
And to the listener that's listening right now, maybe they feel stuck. Maybe they feel like they're running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
Running out of time to chase their dreams. What would you say to them?
It's never too late. It's never, ever too late. I told people that I started law school at 29, So when I was in class, I was one of the older people there. But then in my class, you had people who were in their 50s, So it's never too late. I mean, look at Colonel Sanders for Kentucky Fried Chicken, He didn't gain success with that until he was in his 60s.
So did Sam Walton.
And Sam Walton. So it's really never too late. And that voice that you hear in your head, you really have to tell it opposite to what it's have. But the problem that people have is you don't have other supporting voices around them. So you can have that negative voice in your head, but if the people around you, if they are a choir for that negative voice and singing with that negative voice, you're going to stay where you are. But if you have other voices that more serve as a marching band saying, no, you can't do that. This is how, or these are the people we can connect you with. That's the problem. There's a voice in your head, and then there are the voices around you. And at the end of the day, you can control both.
We've talked about the pain of progress.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the weight of legacy.
Mm-hmm.
This is the final sprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's your last day. If there was one lesson life taught you that you can change the life of anyone listening, what would it be?
If there's one lesson.
It's your last day on earth.
Mm-hmm. There's no better day than today, right? You always think you have more time, and you really don't, You always think that there is time to travel to this place. There's always time to spend with this person. There's always time to create more memories, fix this problem. And in reality, there isn't. So there's no better time than the now to take that risk. I mean, you fail, so what? You lose, you keep it moving. So it doesn't really have to do with financial gain also, I was just telling you that my dad has Parkinson's. I always thought that him retiring, I would have more time to travel with him, but I can't, So when you're in your 20s and, when your parents are younger, even you'll want to think that you have more time with them, but you just never know. You know, you'll want to think that you have time with your friends, or people that you love, or you think you have more time for this one opportunity, but you don't. So make the most of right now.
Carpe diem. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Seize the day.
Yeah.
Sekou, thank you for sharing your journey, your blueprint, your resilience, and your purpose for being here with us and impacting the lives of your clients, future leaders, young blog professionals, young athletes alike. Thank you for making truly such an impactful mark and impact on the people that surround you. You've represented clients, you've mentored future leaders, and you've truly made an impact on our community. To our audience, remember, success leaves clues, and today's conversation was full of them. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll catch us on the next episode of Real Sense Now. If this episode brought you value, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe now, give us a thumbs up, and be a part of the Real Sense Now family. You'll be glad you did.